Okay guys, I did have to go down another layer, and I found a nice layer that looks like it's going to look good, work good on the back of the bow. So I went ahead and laid out the design, and how I did that, I've done that. A lot of times it's easier if you have a helper, but I was by myself, so let's see if I can show you here. I ended up just driving a nail. First thing I did was I eyeballed down the bow. You can see how the bow kind of kicks off to the side here. You can see it better from the other end, but tried to find the center of the mast down the length of the bow, and I put a mark on one end. I went to the other end and did the same thing, and then put a nail, and I just chalk line right down the middle. Okay, so then at various points along the length of the bow, typically what I do is I'll measure to the very center of the bow. On this bow is about 30 inches. Gives me the center of my handle. Some guys will offset their handle a little bit lower, and you can do that. It makes a good shooting bow, but for the beginning bow maker, I would just go with just marking the center and making that the center of your handle. From there, I put a little bit smaller handle on here than what I normally do. I think that's only like 4 inches. Lots of times I go about 5. I'm going to try this one a little bit different. It's just going to kind of, the handle's just going to kind of sweep right into the limb immediately right after the thickness here. And it may even, I may put a little bit of bend in the handle, just in case somebody a little bit longer draw length than me gets a hold of it and pulls it back. Maybe it won't overdraw and stress the limb. Okay, so I'm at 30 inches here to the middle of the handle, which gives me the remaining length here is about 30. You know, half of 30 is 15 inches. So I came here to about mid-limb. Somewhere in this neighborhood is going to be, you know, that's 15 inches. And the reason I did that is because I also wanted to go that same measurement from the other end, 15 inches. Gives me a reference point. I'm going to try to make the limbs about the same width at each of those locations. So after I determined my 15 inches, I went and saw just how far I could get, how wide the limb could be. And I'm going to end up with about, looks like about 1 3/8 inches or so. I was hoping to be a little bit wider at mid-limb, but it is what it is. So my bow's going to be a little bit more narrow than what I wanted, but that's fine. I've been kind of wanting to make a couple of this design anyway. So so I'm about 1.5 inches on either limb at 15 inches. On my ends are typically a little bit narrower than what I've said here. The basic Indian template was their fingertip, which you can see I still have about 1/8 inch on either side extra. And I do that lots of times when I'm building a bow, just to give me a little bit of wiggle room in case I need to kind of shift the bow left or right, depending on what I get into when I start working the sides down. That gives me a little bit more leeway to adjust. But right now I think I got about 1 inch right here for my handle width. You know, I get my center mark, which is right there. That's a 30-inch mark. Then I came up 2 inches. At this width, I made it 7/8 of an inch wide. So, when I'm done, that'll end up being about 3/4 of an inch wide. I find that works out well for me with my arrows, and you know, shooting about 50-pound bows, I can kind of tailor my bows to my arrows. So instead of making a new set of arrows each time I make a bow, I can kind of work on the bow handle until I get my arrows shooting right, and I'll show you more about that later on. So 7/8 of an inch wide through the handle, going to be about 1.5 inches at the mid limb, and by the time I'm done with the tips, they're going to be narrower than that. There was a few Indian tribes that kind of kept them a little bit wider, but you don't have much, you don't gain much by having any weight out here on the end of your limb, and the lighter and narrower you can get it, the faster your bow will end up being. But that's just one way to do it. I did it with a chalk line. Once I had my spots laid out, I just chalked from here to mid limb and from mid limb to the spot on the handle, and then of course that chalk is going to wipe off, so when I'm handling it, so I went back over the chalk lines with a pencil just so that they'll still be there. And I'm going to take the draw knife to it and cut it down to this shape, and then I'll start thinking about tailoring it. And that'll be in the next video.